Module 2, Lesson 3, the Minor Arcana Court Cards. In the previous lesson, we learned about the Ace through 10 cards, also known as the pip cards, in each suit of the Minor Arcana. In this lesson, we'll learn about the remaining 4 cards in each suit, the court cards. Each suit has 4 court cards: the Page, the Knight, the Queen, and the King. Now, let's compare each court card character across the suits, starting with the Page. Let's start with the Page of Wands. The Wands is the suit of enthusiasm, power, and ambition. A few keywords associated with the Page of Wands specifically are enthusiasm, discovery, and adventure. Looking at the card, we see the Page of Wands standing in the desert, looking out across the sand. The wand is held like a walking staff, indicating that he's about to take off on an adventure or quest of discovery. His chin is up, as if he's positive and enthusiastic about what lies ahead. Note that the pyramids are on his left side. File this in your memory bank. It will come up again when we look at the Knight of Wands in a couple of minutes. But for now, let's stick with the pages and look at the Page of Cups. Cups is the suit of emotion, instincts, and psychic matters. So the Page of Cups represents artistic or imaginative instincts, being helpful, either being helpful to another or getting help from another. This card can also represent birth, either the birth of an idea or the actual birth of a child. In tarot, water often represents psychic ability and creativity. Not only is the Page of Cups standing at the seashore, he's holding a cup of water. So this card really speaks to artists and artistic pursuits. The fish emerging from the cup can be seen as an idea popping up unexpectedly, seemingly out of the blue. Next, let's see how the Page of Swords compares to the other pages we've looked at. Swords is the suit of intellect, ideas, and reason. The Page of Swords represents intellectual curiosity, restlessness, or looking for something better, or even plotting, either plotting against self or others. Look at the scene behind him. The trees are bending in the wind, and the clouds are billowing. Trouble is brewing. This page is looking over his shoulder while holding his sword aloft. Is he worried that someone is plotting against him? Or is he the one doing the plotting and perhaps feeling a little guilty about it? This page is in a very turbulent scene, so when this card comes up in a reading, it can represent restlessness. Finally, let's look at the Page of Pentacles. Pentacles is the suit of practicality, wealth, and stability. A few keywords associated with the Page of Pentacles specifically include new opportunities, good news or good fortune, and carefulness. Notice how the page is carefully considering his coin, his symbol of wealth and stability. The scene around him is lush, calm, and peaceful. All is well. The Page of Pentacles can represent new career or business opportunities, good financial news or other good fortune, or carefulness, moving forward steadily and with forethought. Just a reminder, when you read a card, it is usually in the context of the full spread, including all the other cards in that spread, and in response to a question either you or the person you're reading for is asking. So when you have the context of the other cards and a question, the meaning of the cards is always clearer. Again, we'll really explore that concept in a future module, but for now, we'll keep learning about the court cards. Next, let's look at our knights. Note that all of the knights are in armor, and all are on horseback, but their poses are very different, ranging from slow and steady to charging ahead with passion. The Knight of Wands is asserting his power over a muscular steed, keeping it under control but using its great strength to his benefit. This card's keywords include intelligence, energetic, moving, and departing. Like the Page of Wands, the Knight of Wands is also in the desert, but note that the pyramids are on his right side, whereas the page's pyramids were on his left. Coming up, we're going to discuss the idea that all of the court cards are in the same environment. So the page, the knight, the queen, and the king of wands are all in the desert. And that becomes important because the court cards can be thought of as kind of an evolution from immaturity to maturity, from youth to the wisdom of old age. So this kind of gives you a preview into that. So if the page, for example, were leaving on a journey with the pyramids on his left, he might return as a knight, a young man, with the pyramids on his right. So kind of keep that in mind as we look at the different court cards. Okay, let's move on to our next knight. The Knight of Cups is on a sensitive, graceful white horse. This knight does not have his sword drawn, but instead he's carrying a cup, which appears he's preparing to deliver it and present to someone, perhaps to propose marriage or some other arrangement. His keywords are grace, sensitivity, delivering a message, invitations, and propositions. The Knight of Swords does have his blade drawn and held high. He has a look of determination on his face as his horse races forward. He seems to be barely in control. He's charging forward and ready for action. Like the Page of Swords, the knight is in a stormy and turbulent landscape. But whereas the page was looking over his shoulder, the knight is charging ahead courageously. Two very different vibes. The Knight of Pentacles is our steady Eddie. His horse stands perfectly still as the knight carefully takes in the landscape before him, methodically and responsibly planning his next move. He is the picture of responsibility and trustworthiness. Our Queen of Wands holds her staff in one hand and a sunflower in the other. She's seated on a golden throne carved with lion figures, with a tapestry of lions behind her. The throne sits on a pedestal of stone. She's gazing out over her domain. She's clearly a powerful and successful woman of honor, one not to be trifled with. She has positioned herself above others, showing her business sense. She shows the world her serious side, but the black cat at her feet shows that she's also in touch with her shadow self. So those ideas of confidence and being honorable are really represented in the many lions in this card. Look for those clues and look for those recurring patterns as you're reading your cards. The Queen of Cups sits in a thoughtful, gentle pose. She's seated at the water's edge, a symbol of feelings and psychic ability. She's carefully considering the closed chalice in her hands. It holds mysteries inside, another symbol of psychic ability. And it has celestial beings, perhaps they're angels, as the handles, indicating a connection with a higher power. Her stone throne is carved with cherubs, showing her mothering instinct and devotion. The Queen of Swords holds her sword upright, but extends her other hand. She's strong, but open. She's quick-witted, independent, and a straight shooter. Ask her whatever you want, but be prepared for a very honest answer. She's looking straight ahead, taking it all in, showing her perceptive nature. Note that the clouds and trees in the background seem to have calmed down in comparison to the scenes in the Page and Knight of Swords cards. The Queen of Pentacles sits in a flourishing garden, which represents her nurturing nature. Everything is in bloom, and a rabbit is entering the scene beside her throne. The throne itself is decorated with wild animals, illustrating her connection to the natural world and earth. She's cradling a coin, the pentacle, but notice that she's not holding it in a possessive manner, but rather in a way that indicates she understands its value in creating security. She's willing to share her abundance. The King of Wands sits confidently on his throne. His jaw is set and square, but he's loosely holding his wand. He's confident in his power. His crown is tipped with flames, and there's a salamander near his feet. Salamanders are a symbol of fire, so passion is definitely part of this card. Look at the salamander illustrated on the back of his throne. It's eating its tail, so it's a circle, no beginning, no end, and a symbol of infinity, perhaps infinite power. The throne also features lions, which are a symbol of strength, leadership, and nobility. And remember, his queen also had those same symbols on her throne. Like the other court cards in the suit of cups, water features heavily in the king card. He's holding a cup in one hand and a scepter in the other, indicating balance and control between feelings and actions. He rules with kindness and consideration. His necklace features a fish, the symbol of artistic inspiration. The King of Swords holds his blade upright, indicating power and authority. We see both edges of the sword, indicating that he will consider the pros and cons of every decision when he's offering advice or counsel. And he's looking straight ahead, ready to offer his wisdom. Like the other three cards in this suit, the background shows clouds and trees, but unlike the less mature cards that were represented with the page and the knight, the weather seems calm in this card. The king's thoughts are settled. He's intellectually strong. Like his queen, the King of Pentacles sits in a lush, flourishing landscape. But whereas the queen's scene was full of flowers and wild plants and wild animals, the king's surroundings and his robes include bunches of ripe grapes, a symbol of a bountiful harvest, intentional, abundance, and security. He has a scepter in one hand and a coin or pentacle in the other. He is balanced, reliable, and disciplined. One way to think about the page, knight, queen, and king is that they represent different phases of the same thing, with the page being the inception or beginning, and the king being the culmination or the end. Let's look at 3 different ways to look at the court cards in terms of a linear progression. If we look at the 4 court cards in terms of maturity, the page can be thought of one who is young and naive. The knight is a vibrant adult. The queen embodies emotional maturity. And the king is the symbol of the wisdom that comes with old age. Reading the court cards in terms of maturity is useful when they show up in a reading about rites of passage, such as going away to school or starting your first career. If you're doing a reading about a progression or a journey in life, and as you're laying your spread, court cards come up, those cards can be looked at as phases in a journey, whether it's a literal journey or a metaphorical one like moving toward a goal. So in that context, if a court card comes up, let's say the page would represent the beginning of that journey. This journey context can be really useful in readings about relationships or careers. The knight would be in the thick of it, meaning that the journey is underway. So if you were to pull the queen card, the queen would be well into that journey. She has established a pace and she's comfortable with her steady progress. And finally, if you were to pull a king card in a spread that is about a journey or a progression, that king card would represent the end of the journey, coming home or reaching a destination, whether that destination is literal or metaphorical, like reaching a goal. And I know I've said it before, but just a reminder that every single card you pull has to be looked at in context of the spread and the question being asked. The third way to look at the court cards are as representing an evolution of an idea or a plan, with the page representing the initial concept or inspiration. This is a really useful interpretation if a court card comes up in the context of a reading on entrepreneurship or business opportunities, So in that case, the page would represent the initial concept. We're going to really dig into this idea of how cards relate to the spread and the question in our final lesson when you're learning how to really lay those spreads and read the cards. In this context, the knight would represent the period of action where the plan is being executed. The queen is the phase where the idea is being nurtured, refined, and built upon. And the king would represent the fruition of that idea when it has been fully fleshed out and taken all the way to its conclusion. Thinking about the court cards in terms of stages or the progression of life or a pursuit is really useful for tarot readers. When they pop up in a reading, they can give you a solid frame of reference, but they also have to be considered in terms of the suits in which they reside. Let's look at 4 different court cards within the 4 suits. So it's time for a hands-on exercise. Pull the 4 court cards from each suit out of your personal tarot deck. Look at the page, knight, queen, and king of each suit. Note the similarities and differences in each set of 4 court cards. The setting or background, the colors, the attitude and body language of the people in the cards. For example, the court cards in the suit of wands are all in a desert setting. The cups cards all feature water. The swords show billowing clouds and trees in the background, and the pentacles are all set against golden skies. Ask yourself the 3 questions. And remember, the 3 questions are, what's the vibe? What's going on? And what's the lesson? Your exercise is to jot down your impressions in your journal. In the next lesson, we're going to explore the major arcana.